Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Zarzan here. Today we are back for another premium deck profile. Yeah, I know I don't, do premium often, but thanks to the ban list, I really have to cover it. My last video was Dragon Blade Master in terms of post ban list, and that was really a more sad kind of video because we were like, how do we pick up the scraps after, stands are gone, Zarzan's gone. But here's something that I'm actually very happy to cover, and that's actually, of course, Nightrose. Nightrose in premium. My. This deck is just so fun. It is very technical, a lot of things you need to think about. There are a lot of lines of play you can adopt. Your play testing and your deck building is also very important. And not only that, I'm covering this video because of the fact that, for a very long time people have just used Nightrose because of stuff like, Column Bard, and then they were also using stuff like, Sea Strolling Banshee, and they're like, ooh, just get your Temper Spear, get your, Zarzans, then you reach shit, then just put it back again, then just vomit vanillas, play this huge degenerate, beat down strategy, just use stuff, and then you just, flip your stuff, and then you go into big Obardia, and you just pour more, and you just win. Which was like, I felt that was a huge injustice to Nightrose because the deck is just so much layered than just, that. And when they announced the ban list, I was like, okay, fine. Finally, I get to cover this in without any people saying, oh, why don't you have Zarzan? Oh, now it's banned. So I'm personally really glad I get to do this because, as you probably could guess from my mat, Nightrose is one of my most favorite decks of all time. So yeah, there's really not much I can and would say about it. So yeah, let's actually start this video. There are a lot of tech choices in Nightrose, as you probably do guess. So a lot of options that I make are personally for my own plays or my own decisions. So if you have other techs you like to try and whatnot, feel free, just try it out. You don't have to take my word for what works. It doesn't work as a tech, as long as it's logical, it's probably fine. I play obviously for Nightrose because this is a Nightrose featured deck. This is not about Beatrice, but we have Beatrice at 2 copies. We play 1 copy of Nightstorm as well as 3 copies of Skull Dragon. Very, very standard. I know, where's Starlight, where's this, where's that. Yeah, I know, but this is very easy to build form of Nightrose. Nightrose V, 2 skills. And any unit that attacks or battle or boosts as a rearguard gets 5,000 power, but it must die at the end of the turn. So you generally just ramp up all your magic numbers, but you force everyone to become suicidal. The second skill is your typical multi-attack for Protect. When Nightrose attacks, you count +1. It's super call 2 cards from your drop zone into the same column. And if your opponent is grade 3, Nightrose gets 10k. The 10k just helps nudge Nightrose in case, she's too weak, but really you're just here for the multi-attacking. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's very simplistic, very straightforward, just plenty of raw power coming from her, and that's good. She's the main focus of this deck, so let's see how we can actually bring out the best in her for the premium format. We play obviously to Beatrice. Beatrice is a very much newly loved card of premium as well as V for Granblue, and it's understandable why. I'll talk about all the skills of this card, but as you probably guess, this is not the main focus of this deck. You want to find main focuses in the deck, go look up Beatrice Control. There's plenty of decks about that, so you should have no problem with that. So the main skill why you play Beatrice is when placed on VOR, you Soul Blast 1, you should call 1 card from your drop zone to the rear guard. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Pretty neat. Its other skills are mainly for Vanguard usage, and that is on the Vanguard circle, all your rear guards and guardians with Ghosty get 5,000 power and 5,000 shield. Neat, good defensive tank. Then we have Beatrice's Vanguard skill again, and that is that at any time that one of your rear guards retire during your turn, you can counterblast 1. You may superior call a Ghosty with a lesser grade than itself. So you could actually set up for offensive or defensive. You probably know this by now. Most people set up Beatrice defensively. You can set up something like a Rick the Ghosty, which is a heal trigger with 20k shield. Give it intercept because that's what the skill does. So you can literally have a 25k interceptor that's pretty lethal. They have to address it, or they're just gonna run into another brick wall. So that's mainly Beatrice Control, but this deck is not about Beatrice, it's about Nightrose. So this card's mainly used for its extension through the Soul Blast 1 skill. We have Nightstorm at 1-off. Nightstorm, very simplistic. Holo, after it attacks, you can counterblast 1, and Superior call 1 card if this card's in a holo state to one of your rearguard circles. And then of course there's a Vanguard skill which you never use. You counterblast 1, so blast 1 when you place on Vanguard circle, look at the top 5 cards, add a holo card from among them to the rearguard. Like I said, this is Nightstorm's a lot like Beatrice, where you never write this thing, or at least you shouldn't write it. You mainly just use it as means to an end, and that means to an end is obviously to make sure Nightrose wins. So we use this as another way of extension. This is a mid-battle extension, whereas Beatrice is also can be used during main phase. And Counterblast comes relatively easy, as you'll see, or at least if you gauge yourself well. So yeah, it's not bad. We play one off because honestly speaking, you don't really need any more. And as we'll show you later, Nightrose has ways to work with that. 3 Skull. This is honestly you can play 2, you can play 3. 4 is overkill and 1 is too little. Skull Dragon basically cannot be rode as your Vanguard, so don't give me the excuse, Oh no, it can be ridden, sorry. It can be ridden, but it just cannot be called. Yeah, it can't be called as a normal Rearguard, which it kind of sucks, so you have to play around that. Its Rearguard skills, after it attacks, you have to retire it. So you're like, oh yeah, it's a self minus, it's pretty bad. Why is that? Because during your turn, Skull Dragon gains 2000 power for each card in your drop zone. So basically, as long as your game keeps, moving forward, this card just becomes even more terrifying. Ever since V started and Granblue got its first wave of V stuff, this card has pretty much been always there. So there is really no reason for you not to play it. It's been reprinted many times, so affordability, not hard. And it's just that good if you're playing Granblue and you have more drop zone heavy style, you definitely do want to play Skull Dragons in your deck. But of course, all these are means to an end for Nightrose. Our grade 2s are relatively easier. As you probably guessed, we play 4 Column Bard, 2 Greed Shade, 1 King Serpent, 1 Skeleton Cannoneer, and 2 Stormrite Ghost Ship. Let's break it down, shall we? Column Bard's really simple. It's just ultra consistency. Let's actually read what Column Bard does. When placed on V or R, counterblast 1. Add 1 card from your deck to the drop zone. Then you Superior call 1 card from your drop zone to the rearguard. This skill can only be used hard once per turn, which means if you have multiple Column Bards, you're only using the skill once per turn. Yeah, it's just that good, you selectively mill. And as you've seen with stuff like Nightstorm, we do have one-offs in this deck. In fact, you already see another 2 more. You see this guy, King Serpent, and you see Skeleton Cannoneer. So definitely drop zone setup in terms of specific pieces are needed. And that's the beauty of it. You really set it up so you make sure you have good options to start toolboxing and using, especially when you also toolbox them into your deck. And Column Bard is just a great way of making sure they're consistent with a nice +1 attached to it. Moving forward, we have Greed Shade. Greed Shade's a 2-off because very honestly, you can also use this as a toolboxing. But the reason why I put it at 2 and not anything lower is because of the fact that Greed Shade still has a decent skill. When placed on the rearguard circle, you may discard the top 2 cards in your deck and discard a card from your hand. You may add a card from your drop zone to your hand except Greed Shade. It's just toolboxing of your drop. If you lost something valuable, you can just dig your bag and just pull it out. It's nice. If you have 10 or more cards in the drop zone, Greed Shade gains another 5000 power. This just make sure that even if you use him after as a utility card, he still has some form of magic numbers, unlike Column Bard, which is just a fat vanilla. But Greed Shade is really only at a 2-off because generally speaking, you still would toolbox the drop zone, just not very often because it's just replacing 1 card for better quality. And Nightrose has plenty of plussing, so you don't really have to worry. It's just for the more intricate scenarios or for consistency's sake, or just getting rid of trash that's gathered in your hand that you just can't use it, like Skull Dragon. We play King Serpent at 1. Yes, we still play this guy. When Superior card from the drop zone, you may counter charge 1 and soul charge 1. That's literally it. So it's just a quick burst of resources, especially because Nightrose is resource intensive. It's just really bad of a card that is just a grade 2 AK vanilla, but that's not what it's here for. It's just here for the fast resources you can have on demand. So that's pretty much it. And it's not GB restricted, so it's pretty good. Stormrite Ghost Ship is your automatic go-to in terms of magic numbers, aggression, and plussing. It has a similar skill to Skull Dragon that you cannot normal call this card. So after it attacks, it kills itself and you draw, and then when it attacks, it gets 15,000 power. Not bad. It's not bad. You play 2 off because, you know, it's still a good card to have in the deck. Not really deck, sorry. It's a good card to have in the drop zone, but you don't really want this anywhere else. You kind of just want to confine it to drop. Anywhere else, it's a big brick. So, yeah, it's just play the 2 off. So, yeah. Last but not least, we play, of course, Skeleton Cannier. Skeleton Cannier's skill is hollow, which means that if you would like to use its skill, you have to make sure it kills itself at the end of the turn. Or, you know, if it's not killed off by other skills like Nightrose Sama forcing you to become suicidal, you generally would just have to kill yourself no matter what. Its skill is, when placed on the rearguard circle, count +1, choose one of your opponent's rearguards and retire it, then you draw. That's it. Well, what's the point of that? It's great because, you know, it's nice spot removal. Nightrose doesn't have spot removal. This is your only spot removal. And the fact that Skeleton Cannier can be used on the opponent's turn. And you may be saying, what? Yes, it can be used on the opponent's turn. I will be showing you the combo later. In the past, we used to have, you know, the original Nightrose Sama, which is every time, once per turn, whenever your rearguard is retired, you can just mill 3 and call it back. So what you could do last time is you just tap one of your own rearguards, mill 3, pull 1 back, reuse the holo. Wonderful. But we don't have that, since our Nightrose now is not focused on defensive or extending plays, it's focused on pure aggression. So now we need all the other folks to pull their weight so that we can still maintain Nightrose's more technical plays. I will get to this part in a bit, so let me just finish the deck first. Okay, moving on to our grade 1s, we play... Wait, let me put Skeleton Cannier here. Okay, so I'll remember to cover it. Our grade 1s, we play 4 copies of Sea Strolling Banshee, the new V card, 3 copies of Tommy the Ghosty Brothers, 4 copies of Negrobone, and 1 copy of a Stoichia card, Beauty Pulling the Sleeve, or Tugging Beauty. Depends if you're English or Japanese, go figure. Let's start off with the more familiar faces. We have Tommy the Ghosty Brothers as a grade 3 searcher. It gets 5k power if your drop zone 5 more cards, so it's a good magic number booster when placed on VOR from hand, not from draw. You may look at the top 5 cards of your deck, add a grade 3 from among them to your hand, and discard 1 card. In my Blade Master video, I discussed why I wanted specifically to play the original Lava Flow, to ensure that at all costs, I do make sure that I still get my Blade Master Sword by turn 3. But this is a lot different. This guy is doubling up not just as a Nightrose Searcher, it helps to also get rid of any grade 3s I don't want from my top 5 and add it to my drop. You know, stuff like Skull Dragon, stuff like, you know, Nightstorm, and even Beatrice once I get Nightrose. They all just become means to an end. I just throw them away. And Tommy is just a great way of doing that for absolutely free. So you can also see him as another form of milling, which is cool. I'll cover Negrobone next. Negrobone's played the 4th. Negrobone is a very simple skill. Activated from the drop zone. You may discard 1 card from your hand and take this card from your drop zone, Negrobone, and put it to the bottom of your deck. Superior call a grade 1 from your drop zone to open rearguard circle. To a rearguard circle. And then, if you have 10 more cards in the drop zone, you don't have to call a grade 1. You can call any grade. That's right. You can also call Skull Dragon. So Negrobone is really the big way you cheat out any and everything. It's a great way to toolbox the stuff. Negrobone itself just needs to be sitting among the cards in your drop zone, but it only has a one-time usage because it goes back to the deck. So make sure you use your stuff like, you know, your column bards, your big Obadiahs, we'll see later, to really fish them up from the bottom. So you can use this as much as possible. Although I will say this here now, Negrobone is mainly used when you don't have any other options in terms of superior calling, because if you do have stuff like Beatrice or column bard or just a strike on hand, you generally would use that instead. But if you're trying to use your other resources for other stuff, you can just use Negrobone for quick one-to-one trade. It's still pretty good. We play 4 copies of Sea Strolling Banshee. Sea Strolling Banshee is introduced to us from the new V call, so she's probably one of the newest cards here, even newer than Beauty Pulling the Sleeve. Her skills, when placed on the Vanguard Circle, search your deck for 1 card and add it to the drop zone. Sounds familiar? Yes, it's the same as Column Bard, just that it can't superior call. It is a trained mill. And like I said with Column Bard, you know, you have a lot of one-offs in this deck that you can toolbox, so it's good. Second skill is at the end of the battle is unit boost. You may mill the top 2 cards of your deck. If there's a trigger from among them, you may kill this card and draw a card. So it's a nice cycle as well as a milling card, so that's really nice. You do superior call this card pretty often, multiple times. So honestly, you do get quite good milling from this, despite the fact that you may be looking and saying, 2 only? Yes, you do actually use this multiple times, so it is pretty good. You don't have to use the retire skill if you don't want to draw, but you can only get a retire skill if a trigger is milled from the top 2. So it's quite conditional, but it's also pretty good, especially if you're using it with stuff like Nightrose, where Nightrose forces everyone to become suicidal. You can just speed up the suicide process and kill yourself and get near card in the process. All means to an end, pretty good. This card is just really good from Vehicle, so I do recommend Granblue players to pick it up, regardless of what you play. Last copy is Beauty Pulling the Sleeve from Stoichia. Yes, I can't believe it. We are playing an overdress card in Premium. Wow, what a surprise. Very simplistic reasoning for why we play Beauty Pulling the Sleeve. Everyone knows that Granblue is hard countered by Narukami. As soon as you run into anything that bites on the drop zone, you just pack up your table, get into a taxi, you go home, you've lost the tournament. So let's actually stop that, okay? So Beauty Pulling the Sleeve has a very simplistic skill. When placed on a rearguard circle, take your drop zone, put it back into your drop, put your bind zone, put it back into your drop zone. This unit gets 5,000 pounds for each card you put back. So if Stunverse has been taking 16, 20 cards, this card gets a lot of power and it recycles everything back. Everything you lost, you get it back. It's only at a one-off because you really only use this for the Narukami matchup, which is like, how often is that? The answer, very not often now, because, Narukami is not meta. But, in the fringe case that you do run into one, I say it's a pretty good addition. If you just don't use it, just mill it away, just throw it away. I don't really know, it's up to you. But it's just another one-off text that really do save you if you really do run into that situation. And judging by the premium ban list, stuff like Narukami is on the rise in Premium. It's not going to be the best in Premium, but, you will see it a bit more often. So let's be prepared for that. Of course, if they end up binding this card, then I'll just laugh at you, But that's beyond the point. Next up, our grade zeros before we move on to our G zone. This video will be quite long because it's Nightrose Premium, a lot of things to discuss. We play 2 copies of Gus Jin, the draw PG, 1 Obaria, yes. We play a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We play 9 crits for heal. We also need to bring up, we play our V starter Grenache, and we play the OG Grenache from the trial deck. Yes, my print is from the trial deck. Alright, where do we begin? We play crits, very obviously, 7 crits, 4 crits as a strike bonus, 2 crit sentinels, 2 draw PG. I really couldn't explain this to you. It's really just how Nightrose always plays, especially in V. The draws do help once in a while, but you don't need so many draws because you mill yourself out. Crits generally just help you a lot. So yeah, that pretty much covers that. We play 4 heal ghosties because, as I alluded to earlier, Beatrice still exists in this deck. So it's illogical for you to... Yes, you could play the heal guards, but honestly, you want to make the best use of this. You can still combo off your Rig the Ghosties into Beatrice, and it's still pretty good. It's still pretty good if you ask me. So that's why it's still here. We play Obaria because Obaria helps us for the numbers. You may be wondering, why not play the other OT? We don't care about the healing, we don't care about the fronts, we have plenty of, just numbers already in general. The crits come from a lot of things. And generally speaking, the Stoichia OT actually does put you closer to decking out. So Obaria is still much better in the sense that, first of all, it doesn't deck you out as bad, and it just gives you 100 million to 2 units, which is amazing considering that Nightrose is a multi-attack deck. Then we move on to our grade zeros in terms of our main deck, our normal grade zeros. We play the Grenache, the V1 as our starter. We play OG Grenache in our main deck. Yes, it's not your starter because of its skill besides Forerunner. It can enter the Holo state, then Generation Break 1. When this card is retired by the effect of Holo, you may counter charge 2. So if you are willing to give up 1 of your board slots for a turn, you can now get an instant refund of 2 CB per turn, which is insane. 2 CB, really? Yes, you give up that slot, but for the turns that you don't need it, this is great. And it's not like this is the only counter charge of Granblue. As I've shown you just now, we also play stuff like King Serpent, which gives you counter charge on demand. And Soul Charge, which helps on Beatrice, but if you're talking about counter charge, you mainly only play these two, and it's really good enough. With stuff like Sea Strolling Banshee and Columbine milling more of your one-offs, this one-off normal Grenache will be worth it. Moving on to our grade 4s, then we'll talk about the Skeleton Cannoneer thing. This one's gonna be a bit spicy, so bear with me. Play one copy of Big Obadia, one copy of Dragoot. This is my SGR Dragoot that I've literally never used and only as flip fodder. So feel free to take up this slot because I got this at what, $3? I played 2 Negrosonga. Naturally, I play 2 copies of Rose Red Twilight Nightrose Summer. This one you can play more of, it's just that I actually don't have a playset of her, so I'm very sad, but if I had more, I would play more. I play 2 copies of Miss Phantasm Pirate King Nightrose. I use this mainly for aesthetic because, you know, I'm just a sim, but if you don't want to play this, it's fine. I just really like the arts of all the Nightroses together. I played 2 copies of Big Bounty. Big Bounty is your 2020 Prem Call Strike. We'll get to him in a bit. For G-Guards department, we play 2 copies of this girl. I can't remember her name. We play 1 of this, and 2 Negro Lily. Oh, this is Negro Runner. And then we play our GB8. So you can see our full screen is filled with G cards. So let's break it down real quick. This is Strike Fodder. Yep. This is also just used for aesthetics. So really, out of the bat, these 3 slots, you can just use it for your own purposes. You could play more Big Obadia. Big Obadia is a great first strike and great really in any stage of the game, but his first strike skill is where you really get it off. You count plus 1, G flip 1 card, you search your deck for up to 5 cards you want, put them in your drop zone, then after that, you may superior call up to 2 cards from your drop zone for every G card in your G zone face up, and they get 5,000 out each. So at the first strike, you superior call 2. At the second strike, you can superior call up to 4, which is not bad. It's not bad, you know. And you selective mill, so you can really get the pieces you want out of the deck, and then you just put them on the board. It's great, really. This is the first strike all the time for me because I just really want to make sure I get what I want to continue the rest of the game. So Obadia is definitely Big Obadia is definitely getting a spot. Speaking of Prem Call Strikes, the next one on the list is naturally Bad Bounty. We play 2 Bad Bounty. Bad Bounty's skill is, at the end of the battle, that his unit attacks, counter blast 1, discard 3 cards from your hand, superior call a grade 3 from the drop zone as stand. So yes, you can actually extend from a Bad Bounty attack, discard 3, just dig up a Nightrose from your drop zone, or you can dig up Beatrice if you happen to not have Nightrose, superior ride it, and then you continue your turn from there. And as you both know, Nightrose and Beatrice have bell skills that allow you to also multi-attack. So this is generally just a great way to extend in Granblue. Bad Bounty can be used in literally any premium deck in Granblue that, you know, uses a V engine. I would say you could use this for stuff like, you know, 7 Seas. You can use this for stuff like, you know, Pinot Blanc, Pinot Noir. You can use this for stuff like Negro Bolt, Cocytus, anything under the sun that's Granblue. You definitely can use this strike in the same way that Naru uses Starburst. So yeah, it's just a great card overall. I play 2 because you don't really need that many because it doesn't need a copy of itself to flip. So yeah. Alright, now we move on to Rose Red Twilight Nightrose. Rose Red Twilight Nightrose is one of the most interesting strikes I've seen, not just in terms of art, but in terms of what it does. Counter blast 1 once per turn, flip a copy of itself face up. For every card face up in your G zone, plus 1. You superior call 1 card from your drop zone and put it into a forced holo state. What does this mean? So if I use Rose Red Twilight as my first strike, I can actually flip up, you know, one copy of her, and then it's a her plus 1. So I get to superior call up to 2 cards, if I'm not mistaken. And then you put them in a forced holo state. Then if I superior call 3 or more cards from this effect, Rose Red Twilight Nightrose gets plus 1 crit. So that's not bad, you know, it's a built-in crit as long as you use this on a second strike plus, which you generally will since your first strike was covered by Obadia. Wonderful. Then again, her second skill is when she attacks, choose one of your rear guards from each different Nightrose card in your drop zone. It gets 5,000 power each. And that's pretty much it. So the thing is that this deck is kind of sad in the fact that we only have 4 copies of the original V Nightrose. We don't play Starlight anymore. So technically speaking, if you have 3 copies of V Nightrose in the drop, you choose 3 units and they get 5k. But if you play other Nightroses as well, this effect does stack. Just like how in the past I used to play Starlight as well as the normal Nightrose. So this effect didn't really age well, but I think for the bots that it can instantly pull back for the instant crit as well, and a few magic numbers it does give, I still think Rosary Twilight is quite an amazing card, and it's still definitely worth inclusion into your G zone. And good art. And good art. If you want to dispute on art, comment section. You're welcome. 2 copies of Negro Songer. Negro Songer is relatively intriguing. After she attacks, you counterblast 1, G Persona Flip 1. You look at the top. I need to take a look at this. Yeah, you look at the top 4 cards of your deck, choose 1 from the top 4, put it into your drop zone. Superior call 1 card from among them, and it gets 5,000 power for each card flipped up, faced up. So you could use this as a first strike. You could use this as whenever strike. Honestly, I don't use this often because I have so much more superior options at my disposal nowadays. But for what it's worth, it's still a pretty good card. It's still aged relatively well. It's still a nice mill 1 from top 4, and then you just train 1 card. At the end of the battle, this attacks. So you could kind of see this as something like, like V Nightrose, but it also comes with its own milling skill. So I think it's fine. 2 off, because really you don't need that many. We play Galileon. Galileon is our GB8. Its skill is, when placed on the Vanguard circles, you will call 5 cards from your drop zone to the rearguard circles. They get 10k each, and then everyone dies at the end of the turn. It's like Rosary Twilight, but it's free, and it's just one place, and you just get all of this as your last resort. But like I said in my Blade Master Premium video, you never get to use the GB8 nowadays, so it's mainly just here for show, really. Moving on from that, actually, we go into our G-Guards. Man, this video is going to be so long. Our G-Guards, Negro Lily, this guy, and this guy. So let's cover them all. This one first has the skill of, when placed on the rearguard circle, this unit, you Soul Blast 1, this unit gets 5,000 power if there are 5 or more cards in your drop zone. If there are 10 or more, it gains another 5,000 power. If there's 15 or more, it gains another 5,000 power. So according to how much you mill, this card can be either 15k shield, 20k shield, 25k shield, or 30k shield at the cost of 1 Soul Blast. It's neat. It's just numbers and it works. So yeah. Then of course, following up, we also play 2 copies of this girl. You Soul Blast 1 and flip one of your other G-Guards face up. When this unit is placed, you may simply call 2 cards from your drop to the Guardian Circle. So you could train like your PGs, although you don't really do that with this deck. So you could train your heal triggers, and if Beatrice your Vanguard, they get even more shield. So it's just nice. You play 2 copies of it because it's just a neat option to have, especially for a deck like Nightrose, but I think it's fine for what it does. And then with Negro Lily. Yes, this is the one that will take a bit of time. Negro Lily skill. When placed on the rearguard circle, count blast 1, choose one of your own rearguards, retire it. Superior call a ghosty unit to your rearguard circle, and if you do, this unit gains 10,000 power. You'd be saying, ghosty? Ghosty? Wait a minute, we have a few ghosties. Yes, we do. We play Rick the Ghosty. We play stuff like Tommy the Ghosty Brothers, and we also play Beatrice, who counts as a ghosty because it's a ghosty leader. And now we begin our infinite Denial Griffin hell. Okay, I'm just kidding, it's not infinite. Okay, it's not infinite, don't cry. What this does is basically very simple. You use Negro Lily, you spawn a Beatrice, use Beatrice's skill, you spawn Cannoneer, use Cannoneer's skill, sack one of your opponent's rearguards, you draw. It's Denial Griffin. I told you it's Denial Griffin. You can now sack the attacker, or you could use this to guard one attack and then sack a potential upcoming attacker or booster or just a good card in general. It's just such a cool combo to have at your disposal. The downside is the large cost. Negro Lily takes 1 CB, Beatrice takes 1 SB, Skeleton Cannoneer takes 1 CB. So total to pull off this play is 2 CB, 1 SB, which you may be saying, that's expensive. Yes, it is expensive. So really think twice before you use this combo, because it will change the way you end up playing your turns in the future. It's just something really good to have. I know nowadays you don't see, Valkyrian, Blade Master, yeah, those days are over. But having an out to something really strong like that is good. So that's still why I still choose to have these options to be able to be played in the deck. Will they be viable? I don't know, but I still think that it's definitely good to carry these because they don't cost you much space. 2 cards in your main deck, one of which you are already bound to play. I think it's just a great idea. And I mean, Cannoneer is also a great card in and of itself, so yeah, I would still definitely give it a go. And yes, that now covers my Nightrose Premium deck profile. I think the last time I covered Nightrose and Premium was, I think, VEBO08, which is about 2 to 3 years ago already. A lot has changed since then. A lot. You notice the VBTO9 stuff when Nightrose became a V deck has impacted. The Premium collection has impacted. Hell, V collection and how is an impact on this deck. So really, this deck has changed from a lot, and I'm just glad I'm still playing Nightrose because it's still very fun. You can still play other Granblue decks, but because I just love Nightrose, I will still continue to play it. How competitively viable is this? Definitely more viable than my post-banlist Blade Master, I'll say for sure. And I definitely do think this has a chance because Nightrose has always been someone with a relatively competitive history in G. Premium has always been here and there. It's been pretty good under relatively good players, and I think the same will still be the same because Granblue has always had good tools and techs here and there. Good deck builders will always figure out a way to use them well. And in this deck, like I said, we are focusing on Nightrose. If you want to learn more about decks involving stuff like Beatrice, you can definitely Google it up because such decks do exist. There are people out there who do cover these pretty well. But for me, I'm just content with Nightrose, and I think this works brilliantly. Thank you all so much for watching. After this, we are going back to the D series with DBT03, which has been postponed because I wanted to cover some premium decks first. So yeah, you can definitely look forward to it after this. I will cover some V-Call decks as well, maybe. I don't know if I want to cover any more. So let me know in the comment section again if you do want to see some V-Call decks, because I do have some more that I could cover. I'm just not sure. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.